to Human Geography. My name is John Lesh and I'm the professor for this course. In this introductory lecture we're going to cover a few topics, including asking and answering what is geography. We're then going to take a look at the 5 themes of geography and wrap up the lecture by looking at maps and the mapping processes. You should recognize the image on the screen right now. This is a picture that I took a few years ago in Provincetown, Massachusetts. As you look at this image, I want you to ask yourselves, how has human behavior impacted this place? You could see that there are certain items on the menu. You could see that there are certain symbols in the landscape. You can see the way that the buildings are built, the materials used, the colors that you see on the signs. By seeing a picture like this, we're reading a lot of information about human behavior. We're reading a lot of information about what this location means to different people. Anytime you take a course, you should ask yourselves, why are we taking this course? Now, many of you may be fulfilling a core general education requirement. Many of you may be taking this for a major or a minor. Some of you might just be interested in the topics that are covered in the course. Others, maybe it just fits your schedule. But I want you to take a deeper look and say, why do we take a course like this? This quote from Henry Ford helps put into perspective some of the ideas that we're going to talk about. People behave differently in different parts of the world, and understanding why people behave the way they do, why they have the points of view they do or see the world the way they do is very important. When we look at religion, when we look at language, when we look at culture, we're seeing human behavior that has evolved differently in different parts of the world. And these different behaviors help craft our points of view, the way we see the world, the way we interact with one another. This second quote comes from Time magazine when it looked at the year of the protester, 2011. And one of the quotes from the article was, to change the world, we must understand it. And we all want to be important people. We all want to be viable players in our future. So in order to have an impact, in order to be that agent of change, we need to understand the world around us. When we ask ourselves, what is geography? Geography is basically answering the questions where and why. Where is certain phenomena taking place and why is it happening there? The term geography comes from a Greek word, geographine, which literally means to write about the earth, to take any aspect of what's happening on earth, whether it be volcanoes, whether it be shipbuilding, whether it be religion and language, and write about it. In geography, we use what's referred to as spatial analysis. We look at space and we use those spaces to describe the world. So we could ask ourselves, why and where is a certain phenomena happening? Why and where is there a drought? Why and where is there a war? Why and where does a certain religion dominate? So what we do is bring in ideas from many different disciplines. Certain topics we cover in this course may make you feel that you're taking an economics course, or you're taking a philosophy course, or you're taking an anthropology course. That just highlights the truly interdisciplinary nature of geography. So again, while geography itself is its own discipline, it takes pieces of other disciplines to create knowledge and shed knowledge, and again, write about the world around us. Some examples of the why and where that we're going to see. Why and where does segregation exist? Why are people separated where they are? Why is development happening in some countries and not in others? Why is development in some countries feeding mass consumption that's taking place in others? We're going to look at the movement of people and migration. What are the push-pull factors? Why are so many people moving to the United States, and why are they leaving somewhere else? Geography has many faces, and you can see here there's a split between physical geography and human geography. Physical geography looks at the natural processes that are taking place on Earth and making sense of those systems. Systems like earthquake and volcano locations, severe and hazardous weather, why we have mountains where we do. So physical geography looks at all those physical processes that make our natural world. On the right side of this image, you see human geography. And again, the interdisciplinary nature of geography will introduce us to all these topics: economics, history, health, Geographers lead the way in helping understand epidemiology, which is the spread of disease. We'll look at politics and urban issues, and we'll spend a lot of time this term looking at culture. The 5 themes of geography was a framework that was put together several years ago to help organize our thoughts, to help create a simple framework for approaching geographic analysis. The first is location. Now, location seems like a pretty basic element, and it is. We generally have absolute location right at our fingertips, and this is an address or coordinates. On the screen here, you'll see the address and GPS coordinates for Towson University. Now, if you needed to mail something to Towson, you would send it to 8000 York Road. If you are traveling to Towson from out of the area or out of state, you'd plug 8000 York Road into your GPS or into Google Maps. Absolute location, something finite, something that we know the location. If we're going there, it helps us get from point A to point B. We generally don't converse in absolute terms, so if somebody asks you where you're from, you generally don't give your street address. When we communicate, we generally use relative location, which means proximity to another location. And when you think about when you told somebody you're going to Towson University, and they may say, where is Towson University? A way you may answer is in proximity to another, maybe perhaps better known location. We often use Baltimore City as a key area in this part of Maryland. So if you're from out of the area and someone asks you where is Towson, you can say just north of Baltimore City. If you are out of the country, your relative location may change. If you are overseas and somebody is not familiar with Baltimore, you could say, well, Towson's about an hour north of Washington, D.C., a landmark, a city that may be more widely known in the global community. But when we speak, we generally converse in relative terms, and relative location usually conveys some type of importance. So in this case, the importance of Baltimore City, or the importance of the proximity to Washington, D.C. Our second theme is movement. Now, just having this class online shows the evolution of movement and how, in a generic term, variables move between locations. And in this sense, information is flowing online between you and me. And movement takes place in a number of areas. Movement impacts just about every aspect of our life. When we talk about people moving, we can often put this into 2 categories, voluntary and involuntary. Think about the voluntary movement of people. You're attending a university. You are going on vacation, perhaps in the summer or winter break or spring break. We also have involuntary movement of people. Unfortunately, in the 21st century, the slave trade remains a concern. We have people that perhaps are incarcerated. We have people that are moving from different locations involuntarily. For the most part, we hope that your movements are voluntary, that you attend Towson University, that you go to work, that you visit family, that you travel, that these are all different voluntary movements. When we look at migration coming up, we're going to see that voluntary and involuntary factors do fit into why people move. We often frame migration in the ideas of push and pull, and we're hoping that those pull factors would attract you to an area are more powerful than the push factors. Instances of war, famine, drought could cause the involuntary movement of people, and we'll look at an image of involuntary movement in just a moment. These images of Coca-Cola reflect the movement of branding. The Coca-Cola brand, the label, is something that's recognized around the world. You can see that the language and the script on these cans vary, but the image is similar. And as we move through this course, we're going to see how critically important movement is to meet both our demand and also economic growth around the world. So something we'll come back to repeatedly this semester. Take a moment to look at where your clothes are made, where the device that you're using to watch these lectures are made. So when we think about movement, we're not just talking about people, we're talking about goods, information. Social media allows us to know what's going on in different parts of the world almost instantaneously. If an event happens thousands of miles away, we are keyed in, we're tuned into that information in a matter of seconds. A couple images on the screen. The one on the bottom right is a move-in weekend. So again, hopefully students are voluntarily going to school. They're not feeling that they are pushed against their will. And the image on the top right looks at a canal in China, a local economy, where these boats are providing local goods and services for this population. So movement is happening all around us. Technology fuels the rapid pace of movement that we experience today. But we also need to step back and think about how we're moving, how movement is impacting our lives, our consumption, our interaction, our beliefs. This map shows us the diaspora of Katrina, Hurricane Katrina, that hit New Orleans. And when we look at a diaspora, generally what we're looking at is the forced migration of people from their homeland or from their homes. And in Katrina's case, we saw about a quarter of New Orleans leave and never come back. So the hurricane that hit the Gulf Coast in the early 2000s created a significant involuntary movement out of that part of the country. Our third theme is what's called human and environment interaction. And if you think about how we influence, how we create, develop the natural world around us, it generally falls into a few key factors. One is needs. How do we gain power? How do we gain water? How do we use land to provide food? So think about something as simple as a farm as an interaction, something that we've created. We continue to modify the environment, and a lot of times these modifications go beyond needs and connect with wants. The image here is of the Chesapeake Bay Bridge, which connects the western shore and the eastern shore. For generations, the Chesapeake Bay was a major hurdle. But then in the 1950s, the first span opened up. And then a couple decades later, the second span opened up. And you could see how something as simple as a bridge modified the environment. It connected point A and point B on the two sides of the bridge, but it also changed culture. It also changed land use, human and environment interaction on both sides of the bridge. Think about the growth of Ocean City, Maryland, or the coastal towns in Maryland and Delaware because this bridge was opened. So all these modifications have downstream effects. Yes, we connected point A and point B, but also we need to focus on how has places such as Ocean City evolved because of this. Forgive my technical mistake. As we wrap up this look at human and environment interaction, just want you to ask yourselves, with these modifications, how we adapt the environment to feed our needs and our wants. Some of these adaptations are not sustainable. And when we hear about natural disasters, we often need to think about what are humans doing to increase the likelihood of a disaster or increase the likelihood of an event where loss of property, loss of life comes into play. This example that we're going to look at now is a very strong indication of human and environment interaction. This is the Palm Jumeirah, and this is a development that has taken place in Dubai, part of the United Arab Emirates. And as we zoom into Dubai, you could see these little, what look like palm trees that are growing off the coast. The Emirate of Dubai has actually created new land, new coastlines just off the city. This city is a 21st century development. You can see the skyline on the coastline with all the high towers, and then you can see the palm tree that grows right off the coast. And as we zoom into this palm tree, we see that it is developed. You can see that the trunk of the tree has relatively tall buildings, densely developed, and then we can see the connections, the modern connections of road and rail. And then as we go out onto the palm trees, we see all these villas, different residences for people to inhabit. This reflects a tremendous amount of wealth. This reflects a tremendous amount of growth in this part of the world, primarily on oil revenues. So as we look at human and environment interaction, the Palm Jumeirah provides a pretty significant example of how humans are able to create recreate, reimagine different spaces here on Earth. And this will wrap up part 1 of the lecture.